an elected Trump third term, is that constitutional? I think it's funny too.
If the Congress wishes to pass a constitutional amendment and the requisite number of states decide to endorse that amendment, of course he would have the option to run for re-election. In the absence of that kind of constitutional change, I think that it's impossible.
Thank you. And with that, I'll yield to the gentlelady from Texas, Ms. Crockett.
Thank you so much. And I appreciate the speaker for admitting openly on the record that it is unconstitutional. But the concerns that I have are around the fact that we are sitting here pretending as if we all are looking out for the Constitution, yet we are coming from completely different angles.
What's up, everybody? Major Retired Richard Ojeda here, and Eric Swalwell and Jasmine Crockett didn't just tag team the GOP's stunt of targeting federal judges, they body slammed it, burned it, and walked off holding the mic.
To be clear, which branch of government is responsible for interpreting what is and what is not legal?
Well, the Supreme Court, the Article 3 judicial branch has the final word.
So the judiciary is who it is. So it's not the legislators.
You know, I'd say every branch has an obligation to interpret the Constitution. The final word comes from the courts.
From the courts. It's not the former speakers. It's not everyday people. It's not the president. I just wanted to make sure that we understood who it was that was responsible. And what is so frustrating for so many of the American people, the ones that are watching right now and otherwise, and the reason that they're outraged and scared is because what we see right now is a diminishing of all these institutions. Right now, we have a legislative branch that has decided that it intentionally would disregard their duties. They are not checking the president whatsoever. The only check that the American people have had thus far has been from the judiciary. And the judiciary isn't pulling this out of the sky. In fact, they are coming from basic reading of like the plain language of the Constitution for all of those that are constitutionalists when we start talking about things such as what birthright citizenship is.
What started as yet another Republican stunt, this time a resolution to impeach a federal judge, quickly unraveled into a masterclass in accountability, thanks to Representatives Eric Swalwell and Jasmine Crockett. With the original sponsor nowhere to be found and Newt Gingrich wheeled in like a political relic to defend the indefensible, Swalwell and Crockett exposed the hypocrisy, cowardice, and desperation behind the GOP's latest attack on the judiciary. From silent complicity to constitutional gaslighting, what unfolded wasn't just a hearing, it was a warning.
But one of the things that I want to make sure that I get to, because there are deeper implications if we go down this rabbit hole. Imagine the type of world where the president does whatever he wants to and no one can rein him in. It's a world that right now many people are afraid of. Let me put it this way. If Joe Biden would have done an executive order for abortion, despite what the Supreme Court said, that would have been a problem. Imagine if the state of Colorado kept Trump off the ballot and other states follow suit. That would have been a problem. Or imagine if Jack Smith ignored Eileen Cannon and with the help of an activist judge decided that he was going to prosecute the sitting president anyway. The problem that we have right now is that if we continue down this road, then we will not have a rule of law because we have people that are currently serving and they're saying things like, ignore the judge's order. What it means to have law and order in this country is that you follow the order and you go through the appeals process, even if you dislike what the judge did. Thank you, and I yield.
When truth is under attack, silence becomes complicity. The GOP is hell-bent on dismantling the last line of defense against Trump's authoritarian comeback, the courts. But as Swalwell and Crockett showed, real leaders fight back, not with stunts, but with facts, clarity, and conviction. This is how we protect democracy, by calling out corruption wherever it hides and refusing to let the lies go unchecked. So what's this really all about? It's not about a hearing. It's not just a stunt. This is the Republican blueprint for breaking democracy from the inside out. They're not trying to check executive power. They're trying to erase checks altogether. Why? Because they're preparing for a second Trump term where there are no breaks, no oversight, no resistance, just absolute power in the hands of a guy who's already told us exactly who he is. They won't say that part out loud, of course. Instead, they bring in political fossils like Newt Gingrich to throw out tired talking points and sell ghost-written MAGA books like Trump's Triumph, while the real work, gutting institutions, installing loyalists, rewriting law in the shadows, and being done by people who couldn't pass a high school civics test. And while all of this is going on, where's Donald Trump? out on the golf course, bragging about tariffs that were probably drafted by an AI chatbot. We've got apps from the damn Play Store running policy while MAGA cronies leak war plans and call it leadership. These people aren't public servants. They're hustlers playing dress up with our democracy. This is what happens when a party abandons governing and embraces grifting. They feed their base empty slogans about law and order while undermining the one institution, the judiciary, that's actually trying to protect the Constitution from their power grabs. And what do they do when a judge pushes back? They smear them. They threaten them. They launch impeachment stunts to intimidate them. Every single thing they falsely accused Democrats of doing, they're doing themselves, and worse. And the rest of them, the ones who stay silent, they are complicit, because silence is permission. Silence is the cover for the next round of destruction. That's what Swalwell was saying when he cornered Gingrich. That's what Crockett laid out in painful, brilliant clarity. If you're not speaking up, if you're not defending the rule of law, then you're part of the machine that's trying to crush it. Trump said that he had secured the southern border. What did we get? Children in cages, families torn apart, non-criminal immigrants turned into criminals overnight. And now they want to supercharge that system using mass deportations, military force, and surveillance to silence anyone who dissents. That's not security. That's state-sponsored cruelty.
It is time for us to say, Mr. President, guess what? Russia invaded Ukraine. Can we at least agree on that one?
Crockett questioned Republicans in the wake of Trump blaming Ukraine for the war with Russia and Trump mocking Ukraine's complaints about being left out of peace talks.
Today I heard, oh, well, we weren't invited. Well, you've been there for 3 years. You should have ended it 3 years. You should have never started it. You could have made a deal.
You could have made a deal? Ukraine, should have never started the war?
Y'all, this is literally potentially putting us into an international crisis. We may be heading towards the next world war because we have a president that wants to pal around with Putin and wants to do everything to make him feel good, including lying about who invaded who. Mr. Chair, I got a minute left, but I really want to yield to any of my colleagues and ask them if they will say today, very basically, that when it came down to the war in Ukraine, that it was not Ukraine that invaded Russia, it was the other way around. Is there anybody in here that has enough courage to say that Russia invaded Ukraine?
You can have my time.
And this is yet the problem.
Not a single Republican in that House hearing was willing to say that Russia invaded Ukraine. Why? Because Donald Trump has not been willing to say the truth. But it gets even worse. In a recent speech, Trump called Ukrainian leader Zelensky a dictator.
A dictator without elections. Zelensky better move fast or he's not going to have a country left. Got to move fast.
In an Oval Office meeting at the White House, President Trump got this follow-up question from a reporter. At the reporter's mention of Russian leader Vladimir Putin, watch as French President Macron literally laughs in Donald Trump's face.
President called Zelensky a dictator. Would you use the same words regarding Putin?
I don't use those words lightly. I think that we're going to see how it all works out. Let's see what happens.
That smirk from Macron speaks volumes. Trump has dug himself into a hole with the criticism of Zelensky and simultaneous refusal to criticize Russia's Putin. But ever the diplomat, Macron lends a nonverbal assist as Trump talks about potential peace talks.
I think we have a chance of a really good settlement between various countries. And, you're talking about Europe, and you're talking about Ukraine as part of that whole situation. The other side has a lot of support also. So let's see how it all works out. It might work out. Look, you can never make up lives. The one thing you can make up the money, but you can't make up the lives. A lot of lives lost. I think probably a lot more lives than people are talking about. It's been a rough war.
Trump's description of the war being rough is about the only thing Trump said that most people could agree on. But coming from Trump, who got out of service in Vietnam and has long denigrated members of the U.S. military, Trump's assessment of any armed conflict seems hollow. And on CNN, Trump's former national security advisor hammered the idea that Donald Trump is now engaged in any kind of negotiation strategy or diplomacy.
Do you believe when Trump would not call Putin a dictator earlier, is that a negotiating strategy, or do you think he just doesn't think he is one?
Look, Trump's defenders say everything he says is a negotiating strategy, including when he says A and the next day says not A. It's all just a negotiating strategy. I think it's an indication his mind is full of mush, and he says whatever comes into it. He believes Vladimir Putin is his friend. And, you know, you don't call your friends dictators. He doesn't like Volodymyr Zelensky. He hasn't liked him since the perfect phone call of the summer of 2018. So it's no sweat off his back to go ahead and call Zelensky a dictator. This is somebody who is not fit to be president. He can't tell America's friends from its enemies.
Relatedly, Trump has indicated that he may not honor the NATO alliance. In other words, if Russia rolls troops into Poland, which some analysts fear could be next, the United States would not join Europe in coming to Poland's defense. The scenario has left many foreign policy experts convinced that if a world war breaks out, the United States under Trump would be on the side of Russia and North Korea. It is extreme and it is bizarre. And given the more than 70 years of U.S. support for democracy and freedom against Russian tyranny and aggression, the capitulation now to Russia on Ukraine and whatever else comes next is leaving many policy experts stunned.
It's disgusting. Up is down, down is up. We're no longer the good actor. We no longer believe in the same values we did just a month ago. So it's, to me, I start to wonder, you know, I'm not big into conspiracies because I've seen government as a leaky sieve. Things just don't stay secret. But now I'm starting to wonder, what is Putin have on Trump that he's willing to bend over so hard to bend over backwards to really support Putin's agenda. It doesn't make a huge amount of sense. He's not getting anything for it right now. He's giving away the farm. He's, you know, I'm not sure what kind of deals he's making where he's giving everything that his opponent wants, nothing in return, maybe the promise, the dangle of something in the future, but he's not getting anything. He's voting against Ukraine, our allies in NATO. He's calling Zelensky a dictator. He's glad-handing and saying he's going to visit Putin at the Kremlin. This is just surreal and very, very wide departure, and it's really throwing a lot of folks for a loop. They don't know what to make of it.
Unfortunately, the Republican voices in Congress willing to speak out against Trump's Russia embrace have been few and far between. And that takes us back to the point being made by Jasmine Crockett and others. Donald Trump's stranglehold over Republicans has become so overwhelming that even on something simple such as who started the war in Ukraine, many Republicans will not say the truth. They will not say Russia. Because in the world of Donald Trump, reality gets subjugated to whatever falsehoods help Donald Trump personally. And if that means selling out America, selling out democracy, and even selling out basic decency and honesty, it's not just Donald Trump doing all of that. He has countless elected Republicans in Congress willing to join him. And the only good news in all of this is that Democrats like Jasmine Crockett are speaking out, condemning Trump, and shaming his Republican enablers.